Hello, everybody. My name is Kelly Jackson. I am with the Tennessee Conservative News, and today I have the immense pleasure of sitting down with two of the three of Williamson County's sheriff's candidates. First up, we will have Jeff Hughes, and I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jeff, for sitting down with me. I really appreciate you taking the time. Welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. It's my pleasure.
Good, good. So I guess the first thing I've got for you is give us some quick background and then the reason you decided to run and why you think you are the man for the job.
Absolutely. So I got into law enforcement in 1983. I started at the Fairview Police Department, and I worked there off and on until February the 1st, 1986. And I moved over to the Brentwood Police Department on that day and started my 36-year and 1 month career at the Brentwood Police Department. Started as a patrol officer and worked my way through the ranks. 4 years as a police officer. I spent 10 years as a criminal investigator, working everything from theft to homicide, and moved over to admin in 2000. And I spent the next 22 years of my career on the admin side, trying to learn everything from policies, procedures, best practices, budgets, just what it takes to run a police department. And I started out as a lieutenant. I worked my way through the ranks to captain, assistant chief, and ultimately to chief of police. I was the third police chief in the history of Brentwood, and I spent 10 years in that capacity before I retired in February of 2022. My educational background, I graduated from Fairview High School. I'm a native of Williamson County. I've lived here all my life, fourth generation native, and I own a 40-acre farm out in Fairview. It's actually not in the city limits. It's in the unincorporated area of Williamson County. Went on to Middle Tennessee State University, completed my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and with a minor in psychology. I'm also a graduate of the Southeastern Command and Leadership Academy through the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. That's a little bit about my background, unless you want to ask me about.
Yeah, that's extensive and impressive. That's for sure. I imagine you've got some really, really interesting stories you could tell all of us.
I've been told I need to write a book, but
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. So why do you think you're the guy for this job? What makes you feel like you're the guy who should run Williamson County Sheriff's Department?
Sure, that's a great question. And I had no idea that the current sheriff, Dusty Rhodes, was going to step down early. Obviously, his term was not supposed to expire until 2026. So I didn't have a lot of time to think about this from the perspective of running a campaign. His last day, obviously, was the end of the year. I couldn't pull a petition until January. I think it was the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. And then the election is March the 5th. So you can see the quick turnaround from the actual time of making a decision until you got to set up a website, you got to set up a social media account, purchase signs, discriminate signs, raise money. There's a whole lot that goes into this, and it's very difficult to do in a compressed time period, especially in the dead of winter. Why I feel I'm the best candidate, I think it just boils down to experience. Yes. And I have 10 years experience in running a law enforcement organization. I have managed a multi-million-dollar budget. I have built a police facility. We have a beautiful facility down on Heritage Way in Brentwood, a 55,000 square foot building. It had a budget of $30 million. We were actually able to complete that for $29 million and came in under budget because I am a fiscal conservative, and I recognize that every tax dollar is important, and I'm a taxpayer, so I value that, and I try to
That's great.
But it's just if you look at the other two candidates and you compare our records as it relates to being the number one guy in any law enforcement organization, um, hands down, I've got more experience than either of the two candidates. I think that makes me the most qualified. I've been the number one guy. I've been the one that has to make those tough decisions.
Mhm.
When you look over your shoulder and you're looking for direction, there's no one there. You are the guy, right?
Yes, sir.
It's different than the number two guy.
Yeah.
It's different than being a criminal investigator in a division. And until you've done it, you're not really sure how you're going to react in
Yeah.
that position. And I just
Well,
don't think that I don't think we as Williamson County citizens can afford on the job training when it comes to a position as important as the sheriff's position.
well, and that's interesting you bring that up because that leads me to the next little spattering of questions that I do have. The role of sheriff in our community. I think that people are somewhat unaware of the importance of the role of sheriff and how who your sheriff is and what they stand for definitely can make all the difference. Um, they are in our neighborhoods. They are our checks and balance right in our own county. So with that said, how do you view the role of sheriff with those things in mind? I mean, we know that there's a specialized, they are our first and last line of defense. So
That's
can you
exactly
speak
right.
to that
Yeah.
somewhat?
Absolutely. It's more than just the practical aspects of running a law enforcement organization. Um, that's one part of the job. Trying to develop a culture that's desirable, that will attract applicants. So recruitment is a huge issue. Retention is a huge issue within the sheriff's department currently, and there are those kind of things that you have to work on. You've got the primary mission, which is to put deputies out there on the street, and right now we simply don't have adequate coverage throughout the county or in our schools,
Yeah.
and I think that needs to be a priority. But aside from that, there's some authorities that the sheriff has that is not shared by other law enforcement executives, such as chiefs of police, the constitutional authority that sheriffs have, and they truly are kind of the last line of defense between federal government and federal overreach and the citizens that we represent. And so the unique thing about the sheriff is he doesn't work for um, a mayor or a county entity. He works for the people.
Yes.
And so you've got to have someone that is willing to take a stand based on principle and based on what is right. And I think it's important that the sheriff supports the Constitution and what it stands for in every regard.
So that would speak to your oath of office in your duty to uphold and protect and defend the Constitution, number one, first and foremost.
Absolutely, and every law enforcement officer that is sworn in takes that oath to uphold the Constitution. And I think sometimes that may be lost on younger
People.
officers or deputies
Yes.
that take that off because it really is a tremendous responsibility, and particularly for the sheriff because of the authority that he or she has
Yes.
specifically related to that role.
Right. So we experienced here in Williamson County in the last 3 or 4 years due to COVID, the mandates and the lockdowns. And I think the frustration that was felt here in Williamson County, especially among the grassroots, was that we had these administrators, county and city mayors and health departments, even the governor, passing down these mandates commanding people to shut their businesses, telling churches that they need to close, those kinds of things. If put in the position where you have to sort of think outside the box and defend keeping open these businesses or these churches. Is that something that you feel like you would be prepared for?
Yes, and I've had time to talk to many people about this and actually reflect on my time as chief of police during the pandemic,
Yeah.
because these were things that I dealt with as the chief law enforcement officer of an organization. Um, I didn't have the authority that the sheriff has, but it was an issue. Um, when you're when an order, a public policy, if you will, comes down to enforce a mask mandate, say, or uh, it's one thing if you're going into a business that is considered a private establishment and they require you to do something like wear a mask, opposed to being in a public area where there has been a mandate that you should wear a mask. And I think the sheriff's responsibility, as it relates to that, is follow the law, not public policy, right? So
Right.
we swear to the oath of upholding the laws.
Yeah.
And if the legislator if they institute a law, then we're bound to uphold that law. But public policy, I think that the sheriff has the discretion of choosing not to follow that if we feel like, and I do feel like that that's a matter of public choice, and not
Yeah.
it shouldn't be something mandated
Yes.
outside of the law.
Yes, sir. Okay, so let's skip to some county centric issues
Okay.
that we've had directed to us by readers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of the questions were around, like, for example, do we know whether or not the county department accepts any federal dollars for programs? And if they do, would that factor into any decision made by the sheriff, or should that factor into any decision made by the sheriff? Should the sheriff decide to exercise their jurisdictional authority and not comply with, say, an order that violates the oath of office? Would that be something like, because I have a it's happened in our county before, especially in things like school districts where there's a lot of federal money involved. And it's like, well, we kind of have to go along with this. Otherwise, we lose those funds. Is that something that would even come into consideration for
Well,
you?
I'll have to say this. I'm not inside the sheriff's department currently. I'm the outside candidate. I don't know whether they currently accept federal funds and through grants or what have you.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't think that one should influence the other. I don't know whether there's a need financially for those types of resources.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a revenue source, but I would never accept something contingent on having to
Mhm.
be tied to a reciprocal type of
Yes,
obligation to where you had to uh, be obligated for having received that money. If one requires the other, then I wouldn't want to accept that money.
that's great. That's exactly kind of where I was going with that
Yeah.
one. Some of the other things that, of course, Williamson County, it's funny, we're a big county, but at the same time, a lot of the same people talk about the same things. It's the scuttlebutt, right? I get questions about resources within the
Mhm.
county office. So, the use of, um, the use of helicopters. I've been
Mhm.
hearing tales about more helicopters than we need, using those helicopters for superfluous um, things such as trips, to other cities in the state that's not business related to the state or the county. Um, how would you handle that, say, within internally and as far as accountability to the people? How is that something that you would handle?
Well, first and foremost, I am 100% about accountability and transparency. I've heard those same things. I don't know what the answers are. But I think one of the first responsibilities and one of the first tasks as sheriff would be to do a comprehensive review of all policies, all procedures, all practices as it relates to their operations. And that includes obviously the helicopters. Why? What are we using those for? And what is the cost of of operating, maintaining, paying pilots? Those are the things that we need answers to. So when the citizens have questions about that, we have legitimate answers, and we can provide that in a transparent way and make sure that those are being used for the purposes that they're intended to be used for and nothing else.
Yes.
And I make decisions based on a cost benefit analysis. So I don't believe in spending money for things that are not directly benefiting the people we serve. That's part of being a fiscal conservative.
Yes, sir.
In 10 years as chief of police, I worked every budget that I oversaw. We worked within the budget. We never went over budget, and I never asked for anything that I couldn't justify. I believe that we must look at the cost benefit analysis comparison and determine whether what we're wanting to implement is a need or is it a want. And I think that we need to pursue those needs and not necessarily those wants.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So just a couple more things.
Mhm.
One of the probably, if not the most urgent matter, and you and I have had an opportunity to discuss this on previous occasion, is to do with the influx of illegal aliens at our border, and then how that trickling of people is making its way up to Tennessee. I think it was just last week I was getting texts and emails from people that were saying that there were buses parked at the Ag Center with Homeland Security emblems on the sides of the buses. I do know that there was a notification that there were somewhere around a little under 500 of those people that were brought into Murfreesboro, Nashville, and Franklin, because those were the areas that they had indicated to the federal government that was where they'd like to be dropped off. So the federal government was just going to be dropping them off here. So in relationship to your role as the county sheriff, what can you do? I mean, I even got an email about a story about someone having an accident where they were T-boned. Their vehicle was T-boned by an illegal who gave a false address. They couldn't find this person.
Mhm.
How, as the sheriff, could you get your arms around an issue like this when the federal government is absolutely refusing to enforce the law at the border?
Well, let me start off by answering the question this way. I had the opportunity to be on a local radio station with the City of Franklin Administrator Eric Stuckey. I believe it was last week, and he was asked that question about the um, information about immigrants being dropped off in the city of Franklin. And according to him, that didn't happen. So whether it did or whether it didn't, I don't have any personal knowledge. But I think there had been some communication that it could possibly happen. And he also stated that these were immigrants that were going through the legal process of trying to become U.S. citizens. Again, I'm repeating what I heard him say radio station. Um, I think illegal immigration is a problem, and I think it's something that we have to work collaboratively with the legislators at the state level to implement laws that will empower us to deal with this issue.
Yeah.
You may be aware there are actually a couple of bills
Yes,
before
sir.
later now
Yes.
as it relates to illegal immigrants. I think one of them deals with housing and the other one deals with transportation.
Yes.
And so this is how we've got to start addressing these issues. You've got to give local law enforcement, including the sheriff department, the legal authority and the power
The
to
tools.
yeah, the tools and the resources to combat this.
Yeah.
In the form of law is what
Yeah.
I'm referring to.
Because if they're not allowing you all to round them up and deport them, then
Sure,
we would need to have you all would need to have the ability to be able to enforce laws
absolutely.
insofar as you can if there are, say, 5 families living in a house zoned for 1 family, that kind of thing. So, just doing what you absolutely can, because I think there's a nullification bill that they're working on as well, but I don't know how much headway they're working on that. But so, I mean, do you have any other, closing statements? Do you have anything else that you just really feel like you would want the voters of Williamson County to know about you and why they should, vote for you for this
Well,
position?
this is what I would say, and any candidate can tell potential voters what they want to hear. I would recommend that you look at every candidate's track record, vet us, look at our successes, look at our leadership experience, look at the accomplishments that we've been able to make uh, in our career. And if you do that, I think you will conclude that I'm clearly the most qualified candidate. Um, Williamson County needs proven and tested leadership, and the biggest element of that is experience. And for that reason alone, I feel like that I'm the best candidate. Obviously, I have a vested interest. Like I said, I live here. I was
Mhm.
raised here. I'm a taxpayer. I want to be proud of our sheriff's department, and I want to make it one of the best organizations in the state and abroad. That's my goal. I'm not doing this for me. I'm not running for me. I'm running for the citizens of Williamson County. That's my sole motivation for trying to use some of the skills and experience that I've had in the past uh, to make the Williamson County Sheriff's Office the best it can be.
Okay. That's great. That's all. I think that's all we could ever actually ask of our sheriff. So thank you
Much.
so, so much, Jeff. I really, really appreciate you sitting down and doing this. I know that things are kind of nuts right now because early voting has started. So you're having to be everywhere all at once. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Kelly. It's been my honor.
Hey, everybody, this is Kelly Jackson with the Tennessee Conservative News. This is part number 2 of our candidate interviews with Mr. Darren Barnes. He is the one of the 2 of the 3 of the candidates that are running in the primary in Williamson County. And I have the extreme great pleasure today of sitting down with him and asking him a few questions for the folks here in Williamson County. So, Darren, thank you so much for joining me today and indulging me in answering all of these questions.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. So I guess the first question would be, is give us some of your background, the reason that you decided to run and why you're the best guy for the job.
So I have lived in Williamson County my whole life. I'm actually a 5th-generation Williamson County, and I had a great something uncle that was born in Nolensville in like 1841.
Wow.
He joined the Army, the Civil War in Nolensville. On my mom's side, that's my father's side. On my mom's side, um, she's a Sawyer, and my grandmother, her family lived in like the Grassland area of Williamson County. So anyway, um, I'm proud of that, obviously. But I've worked in law enforcement for 32 years. I started out with Franklin Police Department in 1993. In 2007, I was promoted to detective and selected to be a part of the FBI's Violent Crime and Gang Task Force. And I did that for 12 years. Got a lot of experience doing that. We worked 5 counties in Middle Tennessee in the Middle District. And in 2019, I retired from Franklin, and I decided that so I'd always wanted to work for the sheriff's office. So I went to the sheriff's office, and I've been there ever since. And I'm currently a detective with those guys. So, I care a lot about Williamson County, and I care a lot about the direction that, that it's headed. Um, Growth is, to me, kind of a bittersweet thing. It's change, and we all have to get used to change at some point. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can stop. Not that I want to stop it, by no means, but unfortunately there's a negative that comes with it.
Yeah.
And that's with any increase in population, obviously there's going to be an increase in crime
Yes.
and basically an undesirable element. And you asked, well, I think I'm the best one for the job. I think I'm the best one to prepare our office, the sheriff's office, for that. And I think that government, a lot of times they wait until it's too late, until there's already a problem before they try, they try to fix it. It's too late at that point, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I'm the one to handle that.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have said, well, Mark and Jeff, who are great guys. I mean, I've worked with and known them both for a long time. And it's nothing against, them by no means, but I can learn what they do. It's going to be a little different for them trying to learn what I've done and what I do.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. That's totally fair. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned growth, because out here in Nolensville, it is a hot topic of conversation very frequently on the Nolensville 411, and it is an evenly divided split. And
Oh yeah, there's no traffic.
it's a very entertaining conversation to follow on occasion. So for some of the questions with regard to the role of the sheriff, I think you and I kind of got into this a little bit when we met a few weeks ago. And I think what people are somewhat unaware of is the importance of the role of sheriff, and who your sheriff is and what they stand for can make all the difference, especially during times like we've just been through the last 3 or 4 years with COVID. Your sheriff he's the guy in your neighborhood. His kids go to your schools. He's lives down the street. Maybe it's the guy that you have access to. He's your first and last line of defense. So what is in your view, what does that role of sheriff look like with all of those things in mind?
Well, I mean, as you're talking about that stuff, though, there's so much more that comes to mind, right? Because you describe every law enforcement officer, that works for Williamson County and the military. And honestly, I just don't think a lot of those guys and girls get the respect that they deserve. So it's not just about the sheriff, but to answer your question, the sheriff is a constitutional office. We, in law enforcement in general, but with the sheriff's office especially, we're sworn to uphold the Constitution, through the United States Constitution, the state constitution, and also uphold the laws of the state of Tennessee. And it's a very important office. The sheriff is the top law enforcement person in the county, I guess to say.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So considering a lot of people don't understand that the sheriff works for the people. A lot of times people think, well, the sheriff works for the governor, or the state. The sheriff works for the county, but the sheriff works for the people. And a lot of people don't understand that. Would you make a concerted effort to really convey that message to people that the sheriff is the defender of the people?
Well, sure, and I get asked that a lot, and I've been asked that a whole lot, especially the last 6 months since I've been campaigning. I think the biggest question that I get is people want to know what the difference is between like a sheriff and a chief.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the easiest way to explain it, and I know where you're going with your question, but the easiest way to explain it is that the sheriff is an elected official.
Yes.
Chosen by the people, right?
Exactly.
The chief is hired,
appointed. Yeah.
So and I guess you could say a sheriff's hired too, but
yes,
there's
but
250,000 people in Williamson County.
yes,
That's 250,000 people that are considering who they want to be their next law
yes,
enforcement leader, right? So,
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So I guess another question I would have, I know that some of our readers have been interested in, and you work at the department, so you would really kind of have more of an inside ability to answer this question since, like Jeff, he's not at the department, you are.
mhm.
Um, does the county department accept any kind of federal dollars for programs? And if so, would that factor into any decision made by the sheriff, or should that factor into any decision made to, say, exercise their jurisdictional authority and say they decide not to comply with a mandate or something that comes down from the federal government? There's that threat. I know that that happens a lot with a lot of our county and state programs in other aspects, schools and things like that. You find that they have a tendency to sort of not want to forsake those federal dollars, so they're willing to concede in areas that maybe the citizens aren't as happy about. So could you speak to that at all? Does the department do they get a lot of federal money, and would that play a part in decisions that get made?
So with my role at the sheriff's office, I am at the sheriff's office, but with my
Yeah.
role at the sheriff's office, I'm not in that position to know exactly what kind of money we get through grants and things like that. Um, I know that we do get some grant money. And I feel like with what you said, there's like several questions in there, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm guessing that one of the questions that you're asking is, because we get grant money or federal funded programs or whatever, would I concede like what the people care about in Williamson County just to get that money?
Yeah, to
What?
keep it or lose it, or yeah,
No, at the end of the day, I mean, you have to do what's right.
yeah,
And the most important thing that we have is our rights, the
yeah,
Constitution. Um, and the way I see it is that I think there's a misnomer per se, I guess, is that a lot of people think that the federal government is actually above the states,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's not the case. It's
yeah,
actually the other way around.
yep, because
So
yep,
if the federal government wants to try to say that because we're not going to comply with something, and understand there's a whole lot of thought and consideration that would go into whatever the case may be, right? It's kind of general, and I'm not like, I don't really like general questions. I'll answer
yeah,
them the best that I can, of
yeah,
course, right? But there's so many what ifs that you can play into it.
yes. I guess
Um,
I guess I would ask that, keeping in mind what we've dealt with in the last 3 or 4 years.
yeah, you talk about like mask mandates and stuff like that.
COVID, yeah, mask mandates, churches being shut down, buildings being shut down, and it didn't happen so much in Williamson as much as it did in other areas of the state. Like
Sure.
Davidson County was more stringent.
Right. No, 100%. And stuff like that. I believe it's about choice, right? Because maybe some people do feel more comfortable wearing masks, and that's fine.
Yes.
You know, my wife, and I always think about that in the back of my head, right? My wife 2 years ago was diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah.
Puts you in such an awkward spot because, her immune system was shot. She had a bone marrow transplant like last March.
Yeah.
I thought, well, we're going to go to this meeting, right? And we're going to go. She's going to walk in with a mask on. What's the first thing everybody's going to think?
Yeah.
What's she
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. It was made into this political statement when in reality it shouldn't have been. It should have
No,
always, if
exactly
it
right.
had always been a choice, it wouldn't have been a political statement, right?
That's 100%, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that a lot of that was, well, when I say a lot, I mean the majority
Mhm.
was a ruse, I guess to say. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the right word to use
Yeah.
for it. It was blown way out of proportion,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I can't speak for like countywide. Obviously, if something like that arose again, then I would definitely give my opinion, and I would, I would try to stand up for what's right. But like as far as what I'm directly like my immediate circle, no, I wouldn't mandate my employees to do anything like that. You know, whatever, however they felt comfortable, right?
Yeah.
You know, I remember thinking back with the mask mandate last time. There was something that happened where we had, I wish I'd drawn a blank and I apologize.
No,
We had
no.
like several soldiers get killed in something. And I was like, I can't believe that people are making a bigger deal out of wearing a stupid mask than our soldiers that, you know, I wish I could remember what it was, but anyway, I won't harp on it, but it was just something that was really disappointing to me, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I just don't see that big of a deal in it, but I know, um, you know, I don't understand why people got so up in arms about the
Mm-hmm.
whole
Yeah.
mask thing. To
Yeah.
me, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's something a little more county specific. Since you like more specific. As you know, Williamson County being large at the same time, it can be a very small place. So we all talk to one another, especially those of us in politics. We all talk to one another. So there are some anecdotal things that I've heard that have gone on within the department, and I can't tell you a time frame because nobody's mentioned it to me, but just the use of resources, for example, the helicopters. I know we have 3, and then from what I understand, they have been possibly utilized in an inappropriate way. That's the story that I've heard. So if that were true, and if those kinds of things were to occur, how would you handle that, like internally and then outwardly with the public? Say something like that were to become known. Is that something you would embrace, like, you know, making sure that it's just as transparent as possible if that was something that did occur?
So yeah, and I wish I kind of knew what you were talking about as being used inappropriately.
Yeah, from what someone said, it was a jaunt, taking trips to other cities that didn't really have anything to do with police business, or even flying over Williamson County just for fun. I mean, and it's very expensive, I think, to run those, isn't it? Something like $2,400 a trip or something. And
I can't put a cost on it. I know that I've
Mhm.
had conversations with some of our pilots and stuff about that.
Yeah,
And I don't know if our pilots necessarily, I don't know. I can't speak for them 100% of the time, right?
yeah,
But I do know that there's a lot of training hours they have to put in. And, you know, if they're using it for like community involvement, or I know I've used the helicopter um, a couple of, well, not one time that I can think of, but it was to fly something to the TBI lab
yeah,
because it was late in the afternoon. The lab was about to close, and they said, if you can get it here
yeah,
quick, go ahead and test it, right?
yeah,
um, so yeah, but no, if it was used for like personal gain or something, then
yeah,
obviously I'm the kind of person I'm a lot harder on myself.
yeah,
So if I'm held accountable for something, or I'm punished for something, let's say, I've already punished myself 10 times worse than
yeah,
anybody else could have done it.
yeah,
So I do believe in accountability, and I do believe in you know, holding other people accountable, and also believe in transparency,
yeah,
because this isn't money out of uh, you know, my pocket
yeah.
necessarily. It's money out of people
Taxpayers.
that live here, out of their
Yeah,
pocket.
yeah,
So yeah, you have to be transparent, and people have to know what you do. And you know, one thing that I'd like to do when I'm elected sheriff is I'd like to do like a monthly, like a newsletter or
mhm,
something.
yeah,
And it don't have to go into specifics, but it can just basically document, let people know, say, you know, this is how many arrests we made. This is how many of, you know, these are the interesting things that happened this month. These are the complaints that we got to get, you know, against our deputies. These are the ones that were unfounded. These are the ones that were found to be
mhm,
true, and so forth and so on. You know, it's just,
yeah,
it's limited what you can do,
yeah,
and how you involve the community. And I think that's really important, because it also has to do with crime prevention,
yeah,
right? The more you engage them, the more they listen. So
yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, Well, I think my last question is probably the most important, at least to our readers. We get a lot of mail about this influx of illegals at the border, which, because I mean every state is a border state anymore, and the contact that Tennesseans are having with illegal aliens in the state of Tennessee, it seems to be occurring more and more often because there are more and more of them coming to our state. So the question that I would have for you, considering that the federal government really leads the way in how we handle dealing with these people, as I think we had talked about it before when President Trump was president, you heard about ICE and other agencies busting some of these places where they would find some of these illegals and then they would deport them. Well, hasn't been happening for the last 4 years since President Biden was president.
Mhm.
What can law enforcement in our county do to deal with these challenges that we have in our own county, as we are seeing more and more of these people coming into the county illegally? Having, like, I have a friend who had an accident with one where their vehicle was T-boned. They got a false address. They got, no real information. I don't think the person could speak English. And so that seems to be occurring more often. Are there things that we can do, since we can't deport them? Are there things that the sheriff's office can be doing, and what things would you do as sheriff to sort of deal with these challenges that we're having with this influx that we're having in Tennessee?
Right. Well, understand, I mean, I've been in law enforcement in this county for a long time, for 32 years. As long as I can remember, we've dealt with immigration issues
Mhm.
probably since the beginning of my career, right? Saturn, the car plant, automobile
Yes.
plant here
Yeah.
in the 90s. And that's when we really started, I could drive down the street and pretty much point to everybody and say, oh, there's Bill, or there's, whoever. And once Saturn moved here, though, it became a lot different. Then you started seeing people move here from Detroit or,
Mhm.
just different parts of the country. And that's when we had to start getting used to, or getting acclimated to, people moving here from the outside, I guess, to speak, right? So we're kind of unique in the way that we haven't had the issues like a lot of the other, like the actual border states, like Texas and stuff. So I wanted to say that only to lead into one concern that I've always had is that, there's a lot of good people that live here, and their status may not be legal. And they don't call the police because they don't trust the police. Okay. In regards to those people, I want to do what I can to keep them safe until the federal government gets their act together and tries to figure out, how they're going to deal with this problem, right? Because you're right, we can't just arrest people and deport them at our level. Okay, so my responsibility is to protect those that need to be protecting, right? But at the same time, we've got to find ways to deal with the people, and it's like anybody else that's non-desirable person, I guess, a knucklehead, a crook, right? We've got to deal with them the best that we can, and we've got to be hard on them. Now, when the time comes again, and it will, that immigration is going to come to the county and they're going to say, hey, we would like you guys' help with this, then yeah, 100%, I'm going to work with our law enforcement partners to do what we got to do. But at the same time, you have to consider your area of control, right? And right now, our area of it's just we have to consider them residents at this point. And I know that's not an answer that a lot of people are going to be like, well, what's he talking about? But it's true. We don't have the problems that other people have yet, or other states, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So we deal with the bad seeds, and we get them out of here
Okay.
as quick as we can, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, when the time comes, and if I don't know, they change their name so much. I guess it's Homeland Security Investigations now.
Yeah.
So if they come to us and say we need your help, then yeah, 100%.
Okay.
We're going to do what we're sworn to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess my last question would be, is there anything else you want to add that you feel that the voters should know about you that uniquely qualifies you for this position, and why they should cast their vote for you as of yesterday,
Yeah.
early voting?
Right. Um, you know, so I haven't been everywhere that the other candidates have been as far as to hear what they have to say. I can only say what I know when I'm around them, right?
Mhm.
I know that you'll hear one of them say that they have proven strategies. He'll say it over and over and over again that he has proven strategies, right? What are his strategies? You know,
Mhm.
you got to tell the people what your plans are. I felt like I've been very forthcoming with my answers. I don't hold back. Um, I do have a broad range of experience. Like I said, I can learn what they do. And what I mean by that is a lot of people have told me, well, you've never led an agency, you've never worked a budget. Um, no, but my entire career as a law enforcement professional, I worked 15 years in patrol. So I know what those guys and girls want and what they need. I've worked more than 15 years, 17 years in investigations. One of the candidates has never worked in investigations. Okay. So as far as being more well-rounded, that's me. Okay.
Mhm.
I can surround myself. You can't know everything about everything,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Neither can the other two candidates, regardless of how big the department was that they led or managed or whatever the case may be. I feel like I'm more well-rounded because I can surround my people. I can fill the gaps,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But through my experience and stuff, I would argue that they can't necessarily fill the shoes that I've uh, had to walk in.
Had to walk in, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
as I said, I've only been able to talk to two of you. The third one completely ignored me. So I got the
Well,
pleasure of
sorry about
speaking with
that.
you and Jeff. So, well, thank you, Darren, so much. I know you've had a long, long day.
Yeah.
I just appreciate you sitting down with me after a long, hard day's work and answering some of the questions that I know our readers are interested in knowing. So I just appreciate that so much. Thank you.
No, yeah, I appreciate any support I can get. I always tell people that I'm not going to ask you for your support. I want to earn it.
Yeah.
Um, so and I don't know if any of your listeners or whatever, there's the forum that we had that's on the Williamson County TV YouTube
Okay.
channel. You haven't had a chance to see it. That's everybody answering questions and
Right. What I'll do is I'll grab that and I will add that to the, to when they post this, we'll put it in the description box on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. We'll make sure that it's attached so that
perfect.
everybody can see it. So that's great. Great idea. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Darren, so
All
much.
right.
It was so good to see you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.